Hi and welcome to A World of Words. I'm Vanessa and this video is going to be my October reading wrap-up. So this month I decided to do something a little bit different from my usual wrap-ups. Instead of waiting until the very end of the month and talking about all of the books at one time, I decided I was going to record my reactions to each book as I read it throughout the month. So right now it is October 5th and I just finished reading The Elite last night. And just a quick warning that these wrap-ups will contain spoilers for the books I talk about, but I will warn you before I start going into any spoilers so you don't have to worry. This book is by Kiera Cass and it is the sequel to The Selection. You've probably heard of it. It was kind of a big deal a few years ago, I think, but I am reading the series for the first time and so far I am really enjoying it. As with the first book, I wanted a little bit more action with the rebels, and in the middle of this book I felt like America was being really wishy-washy and she was kind of getting on my nerves, trying to decide between, Maxon and Aspen. But it really pulled itself together in the end. And like I did with the first book, I completely flew through this. I think it took me about 3 days to read it, so I must have been really drawn in. And now I'm going to go into some spoilers. So when I put this book down, you are free from spoilers. I really loved the ending of this book and completely felt that the stakes were raised, which is something that my acting teacher used to talk about, that you have to raise the stakes, and so now I think about that when reading books and also when I'm doing writing. Do you need to raise the stakes? Are they high enough? Is everything as intense as it possibly could be? And I felt like the ending really did make it a lot more intense than it had been a little bit earlier in the book. I felt like there wasn't that much going on, and even the attacks were a little bit, they always got away super easily, and so it wasn't quite as dramatic as I felt it really could have been. So first off, learning about the king was pretty insane. He's horrible, and I really think he needs to be tragically murdered by the rebels in the next books, just in order for this series to have a happy ending. Or I guess he could also have a change of heart, but that seems unlikely. And as far as the whole love triangle that was in this book, I understand where Aspen is coming from, but I'm all Team Maxon at this point. Plus he keeps assuming that America couldn't possibly be in love with Maxon, and that was just pretty annoying. And Marley, that was rough, but America was really amazing in that scene. The public's response was pretty disturbing, I thought. I was also really fascinated by all of the diary entries. Ilya was quite the shifty fellow. I saw it from the start. And oh man, her proposal to get rid of the caste system. Slow clap. And that's all for The Selection. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I wasn't really sure if it quite deserved 4 stars. When I said I didn't think it deserved 4 stars, what I actually meant was I don't think the plot of this book quite deserved 4 stars, but I felt like, considering I was emotionally invested in the characters, that kind of bumped it up, because I think the plot might have been about 3 stars for me, but as far as how I was already really invested in the characters and how when it seemed like bad things were going to happen to them I was getting all upset and stuff, I feel like that kind of emotional attachment to the characters made it deserve 4 stars instead of 3 stars. So today is October 8th and I just finished The One by Kiera Cass last night. This is the 3rd book in the Selection series, and I think the final book in the, I guess some people consider it the original trilogy about America. So this wraps up America's story and it's kind of like a final book in that sense. And this ending was so cute. I can't believe how much I love it. This book had pretty much everything I wanted for the series. I enjoyed this so much. I'm trying to hold it so it doesn't ruin my lighting since it's kind of dark outside right now. There was more action, there was plenty of romance, and there were things I didn't even know I wanted that happened in this book. So now, since this is the third book, I do have to get into some spoilers. So if you haven't read the one, you might want to mute this until I stop waving the book around. Okay, right into spoilers. First of all, there were so many scenes with and about the rebels, and I was so satisfied in that respect. I don't think I'll ever be able to say the word satisfied without thinking of that amazing Hamilton song. But anyway, we actually got that scene where America and Maxon went out to meet the rebels, and while I wish that it had been a little bit longer, I was still really happy with it. Also, she made friends with Georgia, the rebel girl, and I thought that was really cute. I also really loved Nicoletta, the Italian princess. She was introduced in this book, right? I read this in the Elite back to back, so now they're kind of starting to blur together a little bit. But Nicoletta was so much fun, and I really enjoyed her character. And Celeste, oh my god, Celeste. She became so awesome. It reminded me of how in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Cordelia kind of became their friend and just was really funny, and she kind of had a kind of similar attitude a little bit and sense of humor, I guess. I just really enjoyed her kind of just being nicer to the other girls. But then Celeste got killed off, of course, because now that we actually like her. And America's dad. No, I liked him so much. And that final action scene in the castle. I feel like half of the characters were killed. There was a surprisingly high death count in this book. I was not expecting that. Though Meanie the King was killed off, so good riddance. But the Queen too? She was so sweet. I really wished that Maxon had told her the truth about his father. I really want to see what she would have done. But all in all, I loved this so much. And while I feel like America and Maxon did have a few too many miscommunications throughout the whole series in general, there was just a lot of back and forth and arguing that I don't think we needed every single argument that they had. But other than that, this series was super entertaining, and I am so glad that I finally read the selection. And I am definitely curious to see what happens in the other installments. Hello! So today is October 20th, and I just finished The Raven Boys a few days ago. So I really wasn't sure what to expect. I was told to go into this book blind, so I did. I know some people absolutely love this book, and I know some people absolutely hate this book. But I was really hoping to like it, because the people who loved it really loved it. I really enjoyed it, so I am super happy that I did. I thought the characters were really interesting, and I really enjoyed her writing style. I thought a lot of, it's by Maggie Stiefvater. I thought Maggie Stiefvater had some really interesting and creative descriptions, and I thought they were really pretty, and I feel like this book had a whole lot of setup, so that a whole lot more is going to happen as we continue with the series, or at least I'm hoping a lot more happens as we continue with the series, since it seemed like this book was laying all of the groundwork for a lot of interesting stuff to happen later on. So I might just start to go into some spoilers now. So for anybody who hasn't read The Raven Boys, I do recommend it. I really enjoyed it. When I stop waving this book around, you are safe from spoilers. So at first I was a little bit confused by all of the women in the psychic house with Blue. I had a little bit of trouble keeping track of all of them. Once I got a little bit more into the story, I found them really entertaining. Persephone especially. I just found the descriptions of Persephone really entertaining. For some reason she kind of reminded me of Luna Lovegood, how she would just be described as appearing there or like floating away, and just like something otherworldly about her, and I found Persephone really entertaining. I also loved Calla a whole lot. She was pretty funny. The scene when they were going through Neve's stuff. I forget what Calla was saying, but there were a whole lot of just really funny lines with Calla, and I really liked the psychic women in the house. They were so much fun, and I'm so curious to see what's happening with Neve, because I actually liked her in the beginning, and then it turns out she's doing something kind of weird, And then they trapped her in her weird mirror where there are like multiple versions of herself, and that's very confusing. Reminded me of the TV show Charmed, where there's an episode where like there's a mirror to another alternate universe and they see themselves reflected, but it's like alternate versions of themselves. And that's kind of what I was getting from that mirror, and I'm very curious to see how that plays out. Blue, I feel like we could learn a little bit more about Blue. I feel like it's either supposed to be that she just is very sheltered and hasn't really done all that much, or we're going to learn more about her later, because it seems like she got more interesting when she was introduced to the boys, I felt. I liked her fine, but I felt like as a character, the boys were a lot more interesting and I was more curious about them, I guess. But maybe that's just because we know everything about Blue's home life pretty much, so it wasn't as mysterious, I guess. I really like the boys. Adam is probably my favorite, and I think Gansey is my second favorite because I liked Adam a whole lot. He seemed really nice, and, you know, he wasn't super rich, and he was kind of trying to fit in with them, and the situation with his dad, I was just poor Adam. Gansey I also felt kind of bad for, because even though he is rich and has all of that money, people don't quite understand him, and he feels like people always misunderstand the things he say and take offense to it. He's like, it's not my fault. I was raised with this vocabulary and everyone thinks I'm condescending, but I'm just using these words that I'm used to. And so I found him pretty entertaining, and I think it was him and his sister, Helen. Yeah, I think they had a kind of funny dynamic there too, and I love that she could fly. And yeah, I also like that Gansey had this mission to find the ley lines because he feels like he needs to bring something important to the world. I don't know, I just found all the characters really interesting, and Ronan was kind of scary at first, and then as soon as he brought the baby bird, that was so cute. And how he stuck up for Adam, I really liked that about him. And then Noah seemed kind of in the background and really sweet with Blue, and that was really adorable. And then we find out about Welk. So first of all, I was really confused about the Welk chapters for the majority of the book. I knew they probably had something to do with something, because there's no reason why this guy would just have his own chapters and it not to tie in somehow. But when it came to the third and the fourth chapter of him, I was just like, okay, who is this guy? I don't like him because he killed his friend. He seems sorry about it, but he focuses more attention on how jealous he is of his own students than he does on feeling bad about his friend. He seemed more upset that it didn't work than that killed his friend. Then when we find out that Noah is his friend, and he's been dead the whole time, that's the main thing that confused me, because that was not explained whatsoever. He's a zombie or something, because he's just walking around and touching people, and he's corporeal. Doesn't quite make sense, but I'm hoping that'll be explained. I'm just gonna go with it for now, because this book has some paranormal stuff happening. It does have something to do with the ley lines, and the ley lines have some sort of magical ability. And also, with what Ronan just said at the end of the book, that he took Chainsaw, the baby raven, from his dreams. We'll see what happens with that. It was really good, and it was really good, solid first book, but I felt like it was really a lot of setup for something that's going to happen later, instead of it being action-packed in the very first book. So I give 4 out of 5 stars because I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend reading The Raven Boys. I found it a very fascinating read. As you can probably tell, it is still October 20th, and I just finished Shatter Me yesterday. Yeah, I finished Raven Boys a few days ago, and I didn't talk about it, so I just figured I was almost finished with Shatter Me at that point, so I was kind of reading them at the same time, and so I thought I may as well just film my reaction at once. I actually started reading this book via audiobook. I found the audiobook on YouTube, and I was reading it while I exercised, and I was really enjoying the audiobook. The girl had a really high-pitched voice who was reading it, and that was Juliet. And I don't know why, but I found her reading it very fascinating, and I really enjoyed it. And I think I was 40 minutes. I was about chapter 8 in the book when the video got taken down because of copyright, and so I couldn't listen to it anymore. And like I had said before, I think in one of my wrap-ups, my library only had 1 copy of this book, And so I had been waiting since in August, and it just came in a week or so ago. It actually left off the audiobook where Juliet had a gun to her back. So this book was kind of a big deal a few years ago. So I feel like this is one of those books that pretty much everyone has read. If you don't know this book, it's a dystopian world where pretty much the world has been destroyed by people using up all of its natural resources, and there's some radiation and stuff going on. And Juliet is this girl who has this power, kind of like Rogue in the X-Men, where if she touches you, she kind of sucks out your life force. So she's been locked up pretty much for the last bunch of years. Obviously gets out of being locked up, and people want to use her for different reasons because of her power. Pretty much all I can say for non-spoilers. I really did enjoy this book. It was a bit slow in the middle, and you have to kind of get used to the writing style. I've heard that some people were kind of annoyed by her narration and writing style, since she does use a lot of metaphors, so if you don't like that or if you don't find that interesting, I can see people getting bored with this book, and I think that's what some of the bad reviews were saying. But the good reviews were saying that they enjoyed the metaphors, and I personally enjoyed the metaphors and found them very interesting and very unique, and I really enjoy Tahereh Mafi's writing, so I really liked them. All I can really say is that you have to kind of pick it up and try it and see if you like it. Plot-wise, it takes a little bit for the plot to get going, but once it does get going, again, I really enjoyed it. I usually prefer larger casts of characters, and this has a very small cast of characters. So as far as spoilers go, once I stop waving this around once again, so shiny, you are free from spoilers. One thing I'm a bit confused about is I've heard everybody in the world is like obsessed with Warner, and right now he's like creepy and a jerk, so I'm very curious to see how he ends up becoming a potential love interest, because right now Juliet kind of wants him dead, and she even shot him. And I would be really surprised if he wasn't angry at her for that. But I guess he's kind of crazy, so he might actually like the fact that she shot him, and he might think it's cute or quirky or something. I could see him liking that. I don't know. He seems like a weirdo, so who knows. And then we have Adam, who thinks she is just the sweetest thing ever, despite the fact that her touch can kill. It's not her fault, and he completely is in love with her, but he also wants to protect his little brother. So I'm kind of wondering if something is going to happen with that, because he might have to choose between her and his brother at some point, and I could see that getting in the way of their beautiful, beautiful love story. And it's kind of a funny love story because he's the only person, well, aside from Warner now, who could even touch her, so it's like he doesn't have any competition, and she really doesn't have a choice but to love him because he's kind of her only option who's not insane right now. I'm happy for her, and Adam seems very sweet and very nice. But like, of course she's going to be in love with him because he's the only person who's ever been nice to her. Like, ever. Poor thing. I really hope Juliet becomes a stronger character later on, because right now she is physically strong, but I want her to kind of grow into herself more and learn more about herself and her powers. And the ending of this book was very surprising. I did not expect it to be like a secret facility full of superpower people. I wonder what's going to happen with that. Oh, I also really like Kenji. I thought he was fun, even though he was kind of obnoxious. All of his lines I thought were pretty funny. He was like the only thing that came close to comedic relief in this book. That's pretty much all I have to say about Shatter. I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and a lot of people say 3 out of 5 stars is a bad rating, but I would consider it a bad rating since, well, I think I give it 3.5, but I was going by Goodreads, and Goodreads says that 5 stars is it was amazing, 4 stars is I really liked it, 3 stars is I liked it. So I liked this book. So I'm not considering that a bad rating, even though I think some people consider 3 stars like the equivalent of 1 star, but I'm just going by the fact that 3 stars says I liked it, and I liked it. I'm going to continue with the series because, ow, I am very curious to see what happens next. So today is November 1st, and I am a good chunk of the way through The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. So I didn't quite finish this book in October. So I haven't been reading this book quite as fast as I would have liked to because I've been really busy the past week or so. I am really enjoying it so far. I feel like it is a lot faster paced and there's a lot more action and a lot more of the paranormal stuff going on than there was in the first book, and I really enjoyed the first book, so I am just loving this one as well. I can't give my complete thoughts on it, however, because I haven't quite finished it yet, but I feel like it is getting up to the point where it's going to be getting really intense soon, and I'm very excited to see how this one ends. So those are all of the books that I have read in the month of October. I feel like I pretty much enjoyed every single one, and so I'm really happy about that. Please let me know if you've read any of these books in October or just read them in general. Let me know your thoughts on them and let me know what you read in October because I would love to know. So please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I upload new videos on Mondays and every other Friday, plus the occasional surprise video, so please subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. Also, let me know what you thought of this kind of new style of